Your vixen will run from daybreak to sunset.
We found our vixen and ran her upward of 2 hours. And after a circling run, she ran covert for a spell, her mask hidden in a dark patch of mirkwood. Then she crossed through the water and laid herself up on one of the rough dumps of earth and sedge. But when she took to her legs again, she was viewed. And after her 2-hour run, we killed her.
We found our vixen, and we ran with her at her full length, dodging, out in the surrounding hills, which abounded with coverts and dull clefts. And after she ran her ring, she pointed over the open for the copse. But her scent was far from good, and her course line broke, and we saw her run along the top of some wall for no more than 20 yards, where she resorted to her sly maneuver, and where and when the wall permitted her, she descended as she was compelled at a gateway, and she ran and reached the mirkwood, rather distressed, and then our hounds killed her.
We found our vixen, an old vixen of pale colour, and no doubt she had performed her same trick, though somewhat more successfully on previous occasions, as her haunt was the same spot, and when hunted she ran the same line of country, and by her device she escaped. But her device went undiscovered, yet still we killed her, and no doubt our vixen was dismayed for failing to escape.
We found our vixen at wood at 10:30, and forthwith, and at her best pace, she ran from us over to wood, then to where she was headed by our party coursing to field, where our hounds slackened until dragged and drawn, and about a mile on they came from scent to her view, swiftly over to great, then to little, and on to, and over to, and under the cover side to, where our hounds came very close to her for near an hour, then far over to cold, and to hill, where our hounds hunted her in her double hedgerow, where they found her in full view and ran straight for her, and after a chase of 4 hours and a quarter, over the course of which we ran through 26 parishes without going into any cover, and from to the furthest point, the run was 27 miles, but the full circle tallied 35 to 40 miles, and our hounds slept that night in the kennels at the inn.
We found our vixen in wood, and after 2 hours of giving her the devil of our dusting, we ran her to ground in a small head of earths in that far-famed cover, woods.
In the heat of pursuit, your vixen should be able to select such a sanctuary.
After a most brilliant burst of 50 minutes, we ran our vixen from Gorse up to the garden, where among some curs of low degree, we found her and killed her.
We found our vixen at grass, and she was of a strong scent. and the hound stayed close at her brush before a burst over severe country. But she pointed first for wood, then bent a bit left over the driest part of the enclosures and fields, and at this point, a hare jumped up in view of our whole pack of hounds, who were, at that time, cresting along with our vixen's breast-high scent, and they continued to run for a half-mile in the direction taken by our vixen. And the anxiety and the despair at this moment may be better imagined than described, as the pace of our hounds was so great that for us to get them or attempt to stop them would have been impossible, because, by God, sir, our hounds were also running hare. And the unlucky hare, having found herself a little distressed, turned short across the field, while our gallant pack kept straight forward on the line of our vixen. And without one single hound deigning to look for one moment in which direction she ran herself off and out of the way, she ran excellent for 43 minutes to Heath. And then, with 4 more minutes, the fate of the vixen. Her death, proclaimed by our thrilling woo-whoop.
We found our vixen, as it was reported that she frequented an open field, and it may be remarked the weather was unusually wet, and in the vales our vixen found no dry lodgings to resort to. So she took to the hills, and having selected a spot where she could lie secure from the midsummer floods, we discovered her in double-quick time, and with our hounds soon at her, we ran her merrily over the road, by, to, through bushes, to, and back to bushes, and from there to Old Row near Park, where after we chased her for over 2 hours, we ran into and killed her. But she wasn't the only vixen we found that day in that turnip field.
From the find to the kill, our vixen ran nearer to 30 than 5 and 20 miles, and it was 2 good days' sport in one.
We met but found our vixen near, and she ran immediately and crossed road close by the railway station and passed and kept the village on the right as she made a strong point for bushes, and her pace ran too good before she turned to the right over at the margin of, before she ran from us on the right, out of town, on the left, and over the vale, and through the bushes by, and across the railroad, where we ran upon her in the open, a few fields over from on Heath, at a fine time of 55 minutes, but we found another, yes sir, a second vixen in the and our vixen ran off fast through the park and crossed the road leading from to a half-mile on the side of and over the wall for reaching farm, and flew for grove, and kept the on the left over hill, and across the road again to enter the vale to, before she passed close by, where she gained the wood by ash and ran straight to down, having skirted, which was a mile long with several earths. Then she ran away parallel to make her valiant attempt to reach wood before she turned back for the village, before making her point of gorse, though she pressed through and away over the road near the turnpike, and after she left on the right, we pulled her down a wet field away from, and this last run tallied for us 1 long hour and 17 minutes, and the 2 runs united being 2 hours and 12 minutes, the whole at great pace, and it was for us a very severe day's work, and yet nothing short of the acme of our perfection would let us taste our second vixen on that arduous day.
It's true. I may have once or twice in my life hunted a put-down vixen, and once killed a vixen in an extraordinary manner.
Our vixen gave her burning scent, and after a sharp burst of about 2 miles, we killed her as she ran for a well-known head of earths.
If a vixen's scent is burning, the creature, when killed, will look like a hunted devil.
We ran her fairly into a full cry.
After her run exceeding 20 miles, we killed our vixen in the center of a village, just as the good people returned from church.
Our vixen fell, pulled down in 32 minutes.
We found our vixen fresh in the wood, and she ran away at tremendous pace, but still we quickly ran upon her and held on to her until our fugitive ran a long line down by, over, hill, and nearly to. But we killed her between, and after a capital run of 1 hour and 35 minutes,
we met a leash of vixen and settled onto one of them and ran her to ground in a low bank overhanging a quiet brook. And then we drew out the second, and in another hour's time, she too was brought to hand.
We followed each vixen at a killing pace, and it was the wettest season, the bloodiest season, but it is always the pace that kills.
Half the pleasure of the chase is giving the hunted creature her fair chance, of which a bagged vixen never has.
But we cut her footpad before we cut her loose.
On the night before, when our vixen ran in search of food, bonfires were lit along the hills to cut off her return at daybreak, lit by the human imps of the world below. Like demons from the nature of their work, these coal miners paid little to light and tend the fires until our hunt was over. Hundreds waiting on the hills. Oh, to hear their unearthly shouts and yells, mingled with the cry of the hounds when our vixen was viewed, as she found her way to her haven was blocked by the lingering embers of the fires.
Then we found our young vixen at 5 o'clock in the morning at Wood, on the edge of the largest woodland in the county, 6 miles from off the old road. But we killed her close to a total of 15 miles from point to point. But she ran the circuitous line, so her run was at least 20 miles, and our pace was tremendous, and none who started with their hounds still rode at the finish, and we ran with 50 couples of hounds.
Feel how petrified she is, her heart banging away like hell.
Yes, we possessed a bagged vixen who would run our hounds for half the season until, with a little mobbing and maneuvering, we would pick her up by her tail and save her before she could be endangered, so we could reconduct her to her dungeon to keep her for another day's torture. So our vixen would do for twice. However, after her last severe run, the hounds caught hold of her, but out of sight, Julians grabbed her from their mouths, somewhat uninjured, and secretly cut off her tail and pitched her over the hedge, which, being also an awfully thick one, allowed our vixen to escape a very short distance, refreshed as she no doubt was by the galvanic application of Julian's knife. And after a half-mile more of running, our hounds got once more upon her, and she was killed a second time. But when we pulled her out from the hounds, to cut off her tail, to present it to Julian's, who cunningly requested it, you can imagine our astonishment when we found that her tail was already gone.
We found our vixen and we killed her after a severe run of upward an hour and a half, having run her woebegone to the ground.
Kill your vixen in the most handsome and satisfactory manner.
We killed our young vixen with spirit, but before she sank before us, she gave us her last shifts and artful dodges.
We found our vixen deep in wood, and oh, her terror. She was made to fly as the fires were lighted and kept lit all night. And so our vixen rendered shy and ran from her county, and still we found her.
As our vixen faced the north wind in her most determined manner, we killed her after 55 minutes of hard running, but we had a wretched ride of 25 miles to home.
From the find to the kill, our vixen ran 5 and 20 miles.
We found our vixen far away, and after taking a ring round the covert, she ran for, at best pace, and without a moment's hesitation, she ran through the old covert, straight as possible and away to hill, and nearly to, but she veered right, where she gained the covert, in which we soon found her, but then she ran through it, and again before she crossed the river, where she failed to find refuge in. So she recrossed the river near bridge, and from there our vixen ran nearly to where she turned right by, with our hounds close at her tail, and again tried the earths at. And by God, sometimes when you get to your vixen, only red pieces of her remain.
Sometimes your vixen is cornered and injured.
After the gardens of, and after a terrific run of 4 hours, we pulled her down near woods, and this chase was upward of 30 miles.
The kit ran to ground, and I saw him dug out to be carried into a nearby field, where he was chucked into the air, and when he landed, the hounds tore him apart.
We killed our vixen after a run of 12 miles in the mizzling damp, and oh, how we savored vastly our amusement.
Your vixen pursued will run from daybreak until sunset.
And yes, our vixen was affrighted, and hers was the most ravishing scent, and most burning, and it was the wettest season, the killing season.
And again, I saw that my vixen was no longer alive.